Not all awkward dates are bad. In a weird way, some of them can even seem kind of cute in retrospect. Welcome back again, Nerd Squad. I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Join me as we count down the top 10 most awkward superhero dates, part 3. And I've got more for you, so if you want a part 4, you know where to find me. Number 10, Rogue and Deadpool. These two are people who both have a lot of weird dates. At one point, Deadpool and Rogue had a team up that ended up in a kiss. The super strange part of it was that Rogue kissing Deadpool caused her to absorb some of his powers, which also caused her skin to temporarily resemble, well, Deadpool's skin. Not like his actual face, but just, you know how his skin's all, you know what I'm talking about. It's kinda nasty. Deadpool himself felt embarrassed about the whole thing. As much as he was into Rogue, he felt they could never be together because of all the trauma he carried with him in his mind and how he messed everything up. But Rogue just kissed him again, took a closer look inside his mind, and while at first she was somewhat taken aback admittedly, after a breath she said that after the Red Skull, having weight in her mind was basically a palate cleanser. And the two continued to smooch for a while longer. Even more awkward later, when Gambit and Rogue were back together, Gambit would actually bring up this makeout sesh, seemingly a bit jealous. What do you think makes a superhero date awkward? Do you think it's an interruption, weird pairings, or, you know, something else? Let us know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Number 9, Green Lantern and Jillian Pearlman. This date got pretty awkward pretty quickly when Star Sapphire crashed it. At the time, Hal Jordan, aka Green Lantern, was on a date with Jillian Pearlman when Star Sapphire arrived attempting to steal him away. This Star Sapphire was none other than Hal's old flame, Carol Ferris. Seeing that she was possessed by the power of Star Sapphire, Hal attempted to free Carol and succeeded, but at the cost of Jillian, who found herself next possessed by the power of the Star Sapphires, also awkwardly becoming one herself, and then calling herself yummy. It was weird. It was weird. It was a weird time. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, you need to check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Head on over, hit that subscribe button, make sure those bell notifications are on because you're not going to want to miss it. Number 8, Deadpool and Outlaw. In a weird turn of events, what turned into a long awkward time with Outlaw kind of ended up as like a nice, raunchy, and actually kinda sweet date, I guess, in the end. In typical Deadpool fashion, really. For those who don't know Outlaw, she's a mutant whose real name is Inez Temple. She's worked as a bodyguard for Dazzler before and is also a good friend of Deadpool's. At one point, the two even ended up married. After Deadpool called on Outlaw for some help after being shot, he sought refuge in her place, but accidentally wrecked her apartment as he was found out and, well, you know, attacked there. To make things right, by the end of the Deadpool Suicide Kings miniseries, Deadpool bought Outlaw a new pad and new furniture. That's right, he bought her a whole new apartment. That's so nice. She thanked him, and because she too cared for him and thought what he had done for her was like super sweet, decided to show her appreciation intimately. Think that's all I can really say. I'll let the panels speak for themselves. Number 7, Starfire and Nightwing. Starfire and Nightwing once had a pretty awkward moment on a date when Barbara Gordon showed up. Lots of awkward moments involving this little love triangle for sure. It was a date that Nightwing, aka Dick Grayson, only learned was awkward years later. Babs at one point showed up to Dick's place with flowers and chocolates likely for him, only to have the door answered by a half-dressed Corey. Babs introduced herself, kind of, but she couldn't really bring herself to stay. Too sad to know that she'd already lost Nightwing. Corey never told Dick that Barbara Gordon had been the one at the door, likely sensing that Barbara, you know, needed some time and needed some space. I don't think this was Starfire trying to be mean, I think this was Starfire trying to be considerate in a way. I think that also may have been considered these two women's first meeting in canon, at least at that time anyways. Not sure if it's still considered that, but at the time, pretty sure it was. Number 6, She-Hulk and Thor. She-Hulk and Thor have dated in the past, and while not everyone was a big fan of the couple, the two have had some memorable moments together during their time serving on the Avengers, while also seeing one another. Things can get awkward when you date someone who you also work with, especially when you're around your other teammates and coworkers. There's a lot of potential for things to get weird. In this case, we're talking about the awkwardness of the Avengers team and their reaction to the sometimes oddly intimate moments that, of course, they witnessed. Case in point, when the Avengers all decide to go hot tubbing together and She-Hulk decides to join them in the buff. Now admittedly, a lot of other people were in the buff, but She-Hulk was really in the buff, standing there in all of her green glory. glory. Thor was very happy to see She-Hulk, as was seemingly Tony, while also feeling a little shocked, but pretty much everyone else was just kind of both like shocked and embarrassed at She-Hulk's boldness. It was an awkward but also kind of cute and funny moment overall. I like that Carol was like trying to cover up Ghost Rider's eyes. She's like, don't look. Number 5. Donna Troy and Terry Long. While She-Hulk and Thor might seem like a super logical pairing, how about Donna Troy and Terry Long? I feel like one of the most illogical things that we've ever done. They were definitely objectively odd together, I would say, and yet they didn't only date. They got full-on married. Despite the fact that Terry was seemingly years older than Donna, constantly flirting with her friend and teammate Starfire, and used to be Donna's professor. Yeah. Can you spell problematic? I'm pretty sure you can just spell it with Donna Troy and Terry Long. Or I mean, I guess Donna Long as she became for a while. I think she kept her name though. Donna Long would be a terrible name, would it not? The relationship would actually go on for quite some time, but eventually even DC realized some of the problems with these two being together. Terry and Donna would have a child together, but later separate, before Terry and their son Robert, as well as his daughter from a previous marriage, Jennifer, were actually killed in a car crash. The really bizarre part was that Terry actually was the one who actively sought to separate from Donna, deeming her too dangerous to be around, and even got a restraining order against her, which is weird. You'd think it would be the other way, but no, Terry was the one that was like, we definitely need to get divorced and I definitely need a restraining order because you dangerous, because you're superhero life. If you're worried about danger, I feel like don't marry a superhero. Just a suggestion to people. Number 4. Miss Marvel and Vision. This one is mainly awkward because it's an awkward pairing. To be clear, when we're talking about Miss Marvel here, we're actually not talking about Kamala Khan, but instead we're talking about Carol Danvers, back when she was known by that hero mantle, Miss Marvel, before she gave the name to Kamala. While Vision is often associated with Scarlet Witch in regards to romance, after the two went their separate ways but were both Avengers, Viz decided to try his hand at dating himself. Wanda at this point had moved on with Wonder Man, and when Vision asked Carol out, I think everyone, readers included, were a little shocked. Carol also was surprised, but after making sure it was fine with Wanda, agreed to the date. The date they went on seemed to be going quite well, but it was interrupted by an emergency call to action, and despite it being a seemingly successful date where both of them had fun, the two never really dated again, as far as we know. If they did date, I think it was off panel because I can't think of any other ones. It's awkward when you have a really good date and then you're like, let's just never see each other again. This was fun, but like, I'll see you on the team, that's it. I don't know, maybe Carol isn't into like android beings or something. Maybe that's what she realized on that date. She was like, I like Viz, but like as a friend. Number 3. Ice and Green Lantern. So initially, Ice and Green Lantern got along pretty well, but then everything changed. Namely, Guy Gardner returned to the man that he'd always been, which meant that Ice didn't actually like him so much anymore. You see, Fire and Ice joined the Justice League of America after Guy Gardner, aka Green Lantern, had suffered from some head trauma that actually caused him to become a lot more cool, calm, collected. He was sweet, he was kind, and that's how the two always knew him. Eventually, however, his true personality would return and take over, and that was when he tricked Ice into going out on a date with him. Kinda like challenging her to do it basically, and she was like, fine, I'll go out on a date with you, we'll see. We'll see if you're actually nice or not. Where did Guy take her, by the way? A theater that shows adult films. Yeah, I think you can imagine how it went. Not so good. Ice was like, what is this? You really are a jerk, Guy Gardner. He's like, well, I am who I am. Gotta give Guy that, at least he is who he is and he doesn't really apologize for it. For better or for worse. Number 2. Nightcrawler and Amanda Sefton. Although we now know her as Amanda Sefton more commonly, originally Amanda was known as Jermaine Zardos. As a Nightcrawler fan, you may already know the significance of this name, but for those who don't, allow me to explain. Nightcrawler is the son of Azazel and Mystique, but they both dipped pretty early on in his life. Abandoned, Nightcrawler was found and taken in by Margali, a sorceress. Margali had 2 children when she took in Kurt, one of which was Jermaine. That's right, Margali Zardos is Nightcrawler's adopted mother, making Jermaine his adopted sister. Oh boy. Eventually, Kurt Zardos left his family, became Kurt Wagner, and joined the X-Men. But Jermaine was curious about his leaving and his potential involvement in their brother's death. So she decided to change her name to Amanda Sefton, followed him, and then surprisingly ended up dating him? The really awkward part is that after Kurt kind of figured out that Amanda was actually Jermaine, he still decided to keep dating her. I mean, they wouldn't stay together forever, but it's weird, right? Number 1. Batman and Talia al Ghul. Batman and Talia al Ghul. Some people love them, some people think they're toxic together, some people hate them. I mean, even the moments when I do love them, I personally still think they're pretty toxic together, so yeah. I mean, granted, a lot of superhero relationships are somewhat toxic. Let's just acknowledge that. I also consider these two to be toxic even without considering or, focusing on the fact that Talia in canon forced herself on Bruce, and basically that's how she got and we got Damian Wayne. Yeesh. These two have had plenty of awkward dates, and let's not forget the time they were basically married in secret as well, which also is just a whole kind of weird. I mean, it's just weird. That was a whole weird thing. Really, everything is weird with Batman and Talia. Perhaps that's also part of the reason why people love them together though too? I don't know. I don't really see it. I'm personally very pro Batman and Catwoman. Batman and Talia, I think there's too many things that have happened where we just need to be like, no, don't do it. Who do you think has had the most awkward date? Which superhero relationship is your favorite? Which two soups would you like to see get together? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.